Hi, I'm Crystal. Today's Junk Journal July prompt is very vintage, and this is not exactly my style. I do have a bunch of Tim Holtz supplies because I watch him do the lives on YouTube, and then I have to have all the stuff. I just can't resist, even though I don't really like the vintage style. I did buy the backdrops and the ephemera and everything. So I'm starting out here by tearing my paper and putting together some layers of paper to make the backdrop. And I don't know why I feel like torn edges feels vintage. I guess it plays into that slightly distressed look that you expect from older materials. So none of this is legitimately vintage, but vintage look. And I keep reaching off screen because I'm trying the size of my pile against the size of my journal. I thought of a better solution in just a second. So I'm layering in a little bit of tissue paper that I got from a package. And then I'm bringing in some banana leaf paper, some brown paper from packaging, and some Chinese calligraphy paper. That's the beige tissue with the grid lines on it. It's for practicing your Chinese characters. I also have some flower inclusion paper, which is a very heavy handmade paper. And I really like it. I think it's pretty, but I like to use it in small doses. So after I've kind of got my pile put together, I'm going to ink some edges and distress it even a little bit further, although I left the doily completely white. And then once everything is assembled, I'll put some ephemera pieces on top to kind of finish that off. So even though this is not really my style, I appreciated the prompt. It's a good reason to get out my pile of supplies. And I do think it encouraged me to try something new, and I think that's the real advantage to the challenges, is that it makes you think about things in a slightly different way and try something that you might not necessarily do all the time. So I did finally think of a better way to keep up with the size as I was making this, and so I used a little washi tape to kind of measure out the size of my journal, since I'm not working directly in the journal. Now I'm getting out some Altenew ink in Mocha to ink up the edges of my bits to make them look a little more aged. And the banana leaf paper has got a very rough texture, so that's why I opted for the double-sided tape to add that glassine bag. I wanted to make sure that the slick glassine bag and the rough banana leaf paper would actually stick together. And I felt like the double-sided tape was also required to get the paper to stick to the glassine bag, making my hidden pocket there. Once I get past those textures, I think that liquid adhesive is probably just fine. But sometimes the double-sided tape is really helpful when you've got an odd texture. So as I go on inking the edges, I did contemplate getting out my sandpaper and my sanding block, really going old school, but I did resist that temptation. I just went with the torn edges. But the torn edges to me really says 90s, and that really makes me think about the sanding, which we used to do for distressing back in the day as well. I haven't seen so much sanding recently, so I think that is a little bit of an older trend. I don't know. Let me know if sanding is something you still do from time to time, or if you still use your Tim Holtz distress tool. I don't think I still have mine. So I don't think I can elect that particular one. So the flower inclusion paper is also very heavily textured, so it also got some double-sided tape. Now that this side is all layered up, I can bring in the other side and assemble it. And again, I'm using this banana leaf paper on the very bottom. It has a really lovely texture in person, but it does call for a little bit heavier adhesive, like I said. So making that the very bottom layer with my Tim Holtz backdrop on top of that. And then going on for a little bit more Tim Holtz paper after the doily. I rotated that doily around, and I used the double-sided tape so I could make sure to get all the fine detail of the doily adhered. I used a couple of different packages of the Tim Holtz backdrops for the paper. I do like the size of those packages. It's a little bit older product. It came out, I think, in 2021, but the backdrop product is still readily available. It's from Idea-ology, and if you just search for the backdrop, you can easily find it in a number of different places. So I'm layering on my tissue by spreading out the glue a little bit more broadly with just a leftover gift card or business card. That really helps the tissue paper to stick down evenly and not have a big texture from the track of the glue. Now that I've adhered the book down, I'm adding a strip of mulberry paper. That had a moment in the early aughts, and you could really find mulberry paper everywhere. I haven't seen it any place in a roll lately. You can still see the flat sheets all over the place, but not so much the rolls. So that is a leftover supply from the depth of my stash. I'm adding some used postage stamps. I bought a pound of those about 10 years ago, and I'm still working through that pile of postage stamps. And I'm also using some Tim Holtz ephemera. And all the supplies are listed below if you're curious where a particular piece came from. But I like the genuine postage stamps. I feel like it gives a real vintage feel, in addition to the purchased Tim Holtz goods. I'm layering together some tags with a little bit of cord to go into that glassine pocket. And then I'm using some Tim Holtz Small Talk stickers to highlight my journaling blocks on both sides of the spread, and writing my journaling, which is try something new every day. This is something a little bit new and different for me, and I hope you like how it turned out. I enjoyed making it, and I hope that you're enjoying Junk Journal July as much as I am. So thank you for joining me today, and I hope you come back and see what I make tomorrow. Thanks.